All right, welcome back to the deep dive. I have to say, usually when we dig into these reports, we're looking at history or maybe some really dense scientific study. But today,
Yeah.
this one feels a little different. It's like we've stumbled onto the script of some near-future political thriller. Except, according to this stack of papers,
Yeah.
this is real. This is happening.
It does have that cinematic quality, doesn't it? But the implications are, they're incredibly real. And honestly, they're massive.
Right.
We're looking at a document that could signal the end of the international order as we've known it for, the last 80 years?
No pressure then. Just the end of the world order on a Tuesday.
Hmm.
So we're looking at a report from Cult, and it's about the World Economic Forum in Davos, January 2026. Let's just set the scene. It's the future, well, barely. January 2026. President Donald Trump is back in the White House. He's marking 1 year since his return to power. And he's in Davos, surrounded by the global elite, and he drops a bombshell.
Bombshell is absolutely the right word. He unveils a new organization. He calls it the Peace Board, sometimes the Peace Council. And the headline from this Cult report is basically asking, is this the death knell for the United Nations?
And that is the big question we're going to try to answer. Because, for my entire life, and probably for everyone listening, the United Nations is it's just been there. It's the furniture of global politics.
Right.
But this proposal seems to suggest that maybe that furniture is getting tossed out.
Well, to understand why, you have to look at the context the report gives us. Trump isn't just in Davos to, shake hands. He's there to propose an alternative to classical multilateralism.
Which is just the fancy term for the system we built after World War II, right? NATO, the UN, the World Bank.
Exactly. The whole let's all sit at a big round table and vote on things method.
It's bureaucratic.
Very. And the proposal on the table here is, well, it's the opposite of that. It's fast, it's exclusive, and as we're about to find out, it is incredibly expensive.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this peace board. We need to figure out who's invited, who's snubbed, why it costs $1 billion to join. Yes, you heard that right, $1 billion, and most importantly, the fine print. The governance rules. Because when I read that section, my jaw actually hit the floor.
The governance structure is really the smoking gun in this report. It fundamentally changes the nature of diplomatic power.
We will get there, I promise. But let's start at the beginning. The reveal. Davos, 2026. The president takes the stage. The report says this was a long speech, not just a flyby.
No, it was a manifesto. The report notes he spent a lot of time on his favorite recurring theme.
The deal maker.
The deal maker persona, exactly. The idea that he, and only he, can solve international conflicts in record time.
And he brought up the Nobel Peace Prize again, didn't he?
He did. He claimed that many countries have called for him to receive it. So he's framing this whole thing around his personal legacy as a peacemaker. And to do that, he feels he needs to sideline the current peacemaker, the UN.
I highlighted this quote because it was just so perfectly crafted. He said about the UN,
I'm a big admirer of their potential.
Right.
Yeah.
But they've never lived up to their promise.
It's the classic, it's not you, it's me. Actually, no, it's definitely you breakup speech. He says the UN must continue to exist, but the subtext is brutal. He's saying, you guys can keep doing the ribbon cuttings, but the real work, the hard power, is moving to a new address.
And that new address is the Peace Board. Now, initially this was pitched as a way to monitor the truce between Israel and Hamas.
Right.
A specific solution.
That was the foot in the door. Help us solve Gaza. But by the time he unveiled it in Davos, the ambition had completely mutated. It wasn't just about Gaza. The draft statutes say the board is to promote stability, restore reliable and legitimate governance.
Restore reliable governance. That phrase. That is a truck-sized loophole. I mean, who gets to define what reliable looks like?
Exactly. It's a catch-all mandate. It effectively duplicates the job description of the UN Security Council. And that's why this is a competitor designed to replace the UN, not supplement it.
So if you're going to launch a competitor, you need a team. Let's look at who's running the show. The report calls them the core team.
And this list tells you everything about the organization's DNA. It's extremely tight-knit. Obviously, Donald Trump is the chair.
No surprise there.
Then you have Jared Kushner, his son-in-law. You have Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State.
Okay, family, cabinet, pretty standard so far.
Then you get Steve Witkoff, the special envoy.
He's the real estate guy, isn't he?
Yes, real estate tycoon, which, signals that they see these peace deals as well as property deals. But the name that really jumped out at me, and the report highlights this too, is Tony Blair.
The former British Prime Minister.
The very same.
That feels like a real blast from the past. I mean, him on a board led by a populist American president, that's an interesting pairing.
It provides a very necessary ingredient, legitimacy. Blair gives the board this veneer of international statesmanship. He's the bridge to the old establishment. But make no mistake, this is a Washington-centric operation. These are people chosen for personal loyalty.
Okay, so we have the inner circle. Now for the members. This is where it gets into the pay-to-play stuff. The report mentions a billion-dollar ticket. I had to reread that part.
It is staggering. The price of admission for a permanent seat on the Peace Board is $1 billion.
$1 billion. With a B? Is it, I mean, what is that? A donation?
Yeah.
A membership fee? Where's the money go?
The official line from the U.S. is that the funds are for the reconstruction of Gaza.
Okay, so on paper, a humanitarian cause, that's hard to argue with.
In theory, yes, but here's the problem. The report says several countries have agreed to join politically, but they've explicitly said they will not pay the $1 billion.
So they want the seat, but they don't want to write the check.
Correct. And it's because there's zero transparency. Washington hasn't detailed how the funds will be managed, who awards the contracts, or what oversight there is.
I see. So you're a foreign leader, and you're being asked to wire $1 billion into a fund controlled by the president's inner circle, which includes real estate developers, with no audit trail.
Precisely. It looks less like a UN pledge drive and more like a private equity buy-in, and that's scaring people off.
So let's talk about who actually said yes. Who is signing up for this?
It's an eclectic mix. You have Israel, obviously, then Morocco and Egypt.
Makes sense. Key regional players, they need U.S. support. They almost have to be there.
Right, but then you get Argentina, Hungary, and Albania.
Hungary and Argentina. So Milei and Orban, that feels very ideological.
Yes, it is. The analysis in the report sorts the yes crowd into three groups: long-standing allies, countries dependent on the U.S., and those with ideological affinities. It's a coalition of the willing, but also of the dependent.
And the no list is just as telling. Who said no?
The traditional Western core. France, Italy, Sweden, Norway, all of them declined.
That's a huge chunk of Europe saying thanks, but no thanks.
It's a firm rejection, and it did not go over well.
Oh, I bet. And there's a specific story in the report about France, right?
Yeah.
This is the part that sounded like a movie scene.
It's very dramatic. Paris refuses the invitation. The reaction from Trump was, well, instantaneous and explosive.
What did he do?
He threatened to impose 200% tariffs on French wine and champagne.
200%.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't join his club.
Just for refusing the invitation. And this detail is key because it shows you the transactional nature of it all. It's not join us because we share values. It's join us or I will crash your most famous export industry.
It's a protection racket. Nice vineyard you have there. Shame if something were to happen to it.
It really strips away the pretense. It's a stick and carrot approach, but the stick is a trade war. And it sends a message.
Yeah.
You can't just politely decline. There's a cost.
That is wild. And in the middle of this, you have the fence sitters. The report mentions Spain, but also two huge players, China and Russia.
They're the critical variable. The report says Beijing and Moscow are considering the invitation.
Why would they even consider it? Wouldn't they want to undermine a U.S. initiative?
Think about it. If they join, they legitimize it. If China sits on the peace board, it stops being a U.S. splinter group and becomes a real global power center, one that bypasses all the human rights councils and bureaucracy of the UN. It might actually appeal to them.
So if they joined, the UN is basically done.
It would be a massive, massive blow. It would signal the great powers have moved their conversation to a new room.
Okay, I want to get to the part of the report that really made me stop and read the paragraph 3 times. We've talked about the money, the wine tariffs,
Right.
but the actual governance rules,
Yeah.
this is the aha.
This is where the true intent reveals itself.
So Trump is the chair. We got that.
Yeah.
But for how long?
The report says he will chair the board indefinitely.
Indefinitely. So no term limits.
None.
What if the board wants a new chair? Can they vote him out?
Removal requires a unanimous vote.
Unanimous, meaning everyone has to agree.
Everyone, including his son-in-law, including the countries dependent on U.S. aid. So, practically speaking, removal is impossible.
But here's the part that I need you to explain. We're in 2026. His term ends in January 2029. He can't run again. In every other organization, NATO, the UN, the seat belongs to the office, right? The President of the United States sits in the chair, whoever that is.
That is how institutional power works. It's tied to the role. But the Peace Board has a specific provision.
Yeah.
The report calls it the the 2029 clause.
Okay, unpack this clause for us, because this is the twist.
The clause states that when Trump leaves the White House in 2029, his successor,
The new duly elected president.
right, that person only has the power to appoint a representative to the board.
Wait, let me get this straight. The new U.S. president, the person with the nuclear codes, sends a rep to sit in the audience, while former President Trump continues to run the board as chairman.
That is exactly what the text describes. Trump remains in charge. The U.S. government effectively becomes just another member, subordinate to the board's leadership.
Has that ever happened before?
Not on this scale. It's what the report calls undefined power and personalistic leadership. It effectively privatizes diplomatic power. It separates the influence from the office and attaches it to the person.
So he's building a structure that keeps him at the head of the global table, even when he's a private citizen.
Precisely. It's a complete decoupling of democratic power from global influence.
It's the privatization of the presidency, almost.
In a way, yes. And this explains the concern about the end of the UN. If the most powerful nation shifts its weight to a private club run by one person who doesn't answer to voters anymore, the old institutions lose their oxygen.
It's like moving the headquarters of global diplomacy from the UN in New York to Mar-a-Lago.
Metaphorically, and perhaps literally.
Which brings us back to the stated purpose, Gaza. There's a massive disconnect here that the report points out.
The paradox of the Gaza mission.
We have $1 billion buy-in for Gaza reconstruction. But who's missing from the table?
The Palestinians?
None.
Zero. The report is very clear. None of its members are Palestinian, nor have any invitations been extended to representatives of the Palestinian people.
That seems counterintuitive. How do you monitor a truce without talking to the people who live there?
That's the criticism. It reinforces this idea that it's about external control, not local partnership. And there's another detail, the founding document of the organization. It doesn't even explicitly mention Gaza.
Wait, really? The thing they're selling as the Gaza solution doesn't mention Gaza.
Not in the text, no. It just uses that vague language we talked about, areas affected or threatened by conflict.
So Gaza is just the Trojan horse.
That's the fear. You use the urgent crisis in Gaza to get the board set up, get the countries on board, get the money flowing. But once the infrastructure is there, you can pivot to anything.
It's the launch pad, not the destination.
Exactly.
And while all this is happening, what's going on at the UN, the report says the UN is cornered.
It is under siege. Just a week before this announcement in Davos, the U.S. withdrew from a dozen international organizations.
A dozen. In 1 week.
Yes. So this isn't isolated. It's a coordinated strategy. You dismantle engagement with the old system, and you simultaneously unveil the new one.
It's a hostile takeover of global diplomacy.
Or a startup disrupting a legacy industry, depending on how you want to frame it. But the stakes are peace and war, not market share.
Okay, let's pull this all together. We have a new peace board.
Right.
$1 billion entry fee that nobody really wants to pay.
Or they face the consequences.
A governance structure that keeps Trump in power forever, even after he leaves office.
Correct. The 2029 clause.
It excludes key European allies who are now facing massive wine tariffs.
A very painful detail for Paris.
And it claims to be about Gaza, but excludes Palestinians.
And serves as a direct challenge to the very existence of the UN.
So why does this matter to someone just going about their day? Why should you care about some board meeting in Switzerland?
Because for 80 years, the world has operated on a system of rules. It hasn't been perfect, far from it, but there was a system. There were rules for trade, for war, a standardized way for nations to interact.
It's the world operating system.
Exactly. And this proposal suggests we're deleting that operating system and installing a new one where diplomacy is transactional, personal, and pay to play. If you have the money or you're loyal to the leader, you get a seat. If not, you get tariffs. It's a shift from a community of nations to a board of directors.
From a community to a board of directors.
All right.
A private one at that.
And that raises the most important question for me. If this board succeeds, if it gets traction, we could be seeing the creation of a parallel power structure, one that doesn't answer to voters, doesn't change with elections, and operates purely on the relationships of its founder.
It's almost a monarchy of diplomacy sitting on top of a democracy.
That's a provocative way to put it. But when you have a leader who cannot be removed and who retains power after leaving public office, monarchy isn't too far off, conceptually.
It definitely feels like we are in uncharted waters. And I keep thinking about those fence sitters you mentioned, China and Russia.
They are the ones to watch.
If they jump in, this thing becomes real. If they stay out, maybe it just remains a vanity project.
Exactly. Their decision will likely determine if the UN survives as the central actor in global governance, or if we move into this new, personalized era.
A real cliffhanger. And we're living through it.
We are.
Well, that's a lot to process. $1 billion, wine tariffs, and a permanent chairman. Definitely not the Davos of 10 years ago.
No, it is a new world.
We want to thank you for listening to this deep dive. We hope this unpacked the headlines for you and gave you the context you need.
Always a pleasure.
Keep an eye on the news, specifically on Beijing and Moscow. That seems to be the next domino. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.